So Seattle's Seattle Homelessness Action Plan has not even come close to putting a dent in the number of homeless folks out on the streets in Seattle. Is this shocking? Well, let's be reasonable. Program's just kind of getting going. But what I often talk about is if you build a bunch of housing, even if there are many homes for the homeless, you're just going to draw people in. You're going to have more and more people coming because why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they come to Seattle? Now, a lot of these folks, they need addiction help. They need mental, they got mental issues. They need some real help. You just put a roof over their head, those problems aren't going away. But with this plan, we've got all kinds of services and all kinds of stuff. But it feels like, all right, if you build it, they will come. And in this case, that is not the direction you want to be helping people in, because it just encourages people to keep living that lifestyle and keep going down that road. And I don't think that's the end result, but it kind of feels like that's what's going on. Well, it's okay. You just keep doing your life and we'll put a roof over your head and we'll have you living in this other, type of squalor encampment. Seattle's one Seattle Homelessness Action Plan Q2 results show that work towards its goal of housing the homeless isn't keeping pace with the actual problem. So we do all this work towards housing the homeless and getting them services, and it seems like we just keep going backwards, doesn't it? Because these are oftentimes not real solutions. Putting people in a tiny little mini house, do you think they're going to live there the rest of their years? Are they going to retire there from their life of not working? What's the end goal here? Shouldn't it be to get people back on their feet, living a normal life, back into the society, back into community? You can't do that when you're wildly hooked on drugs and you're out there doing the crime stuff to pay for said drugs. And you can't do that when you've got mental issues that you shouldn't be out on the street with. But that is literally what the homeless encampments are loaded with. So you tell me, go to any homeless encampment, just walk around and take a look and see what you see and what's going on. You got a bunch of drug addicts and crazy people just doing what crazy people do, which is not necessarily what the rest of us do. They're not going to work. They're not paying their taxes. They're not doing all this stuff that makes them contributing members of society. But we don't seem to care. We're just like, I'll build them a little tiny house. It'll be fine. But it's not. And these programs, they're just flat not going to work. So politicians got to do some lip service to, what they're trying to do. Hey, this isn't a good look for Seattle. We got to do something. Well, they're trying. But the numbers will tell you, not even scratching the surface. Mayor Bruce Harrell launched the Action Plan website in May to provide transparent details of his office's approach to the city's homelessness crisis. I think Mayor Bruce Harrell is doing as good a job as anybody can, given the multiple angles that he is being hit up on a daily basis. To end homelessness, you're going to have to take a real hard approach that a city like Seattle isn't capable of doing right now. Talking with somebody, I've been attending the YouTube premieres of the News for Reasonable People, my podcasts, and chatting with folks there. And it's like, you're not going to be able to, Portland's not going to be able to fix most of these problems because they're going to have to take a much harsher approach to solving some of these. And we're just not on a path to do that right now. We're not on a path to put people in jail that need to be. We're not in a path to put people with mental issues and institutionalize them, get them off the streets. We're just not there. We're just letting people roam around. And then we wonder why crime skyrockets. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in here because they've got some metrics here with the new website. Pretty interesting. So our goal is to ensure all Seattle residents have access to shelter, make housing more affordable, and easier to build, and to innovate new ways to support residents in crisis, the website site states. Through the first 6 months of 2022, coordinated outreach efforts involving Seattle's HOPE team, the King County Regional Homeless Authority, and other partners resulted in more than 700 referrals to homeless persons for shelter. Well, okay, so a referral is just, hey, you can go here. Whether they show up and whether they spend at least one night there, we don't really know. We don't really know. And does that help them get off the streets by referring them to one of these entities? Well, you know, so in so many instances where you see these referrals and you see these sweeps being made, very few of the homeless people that being swept ever accept the actual referral. They just don't take it because they don't want to live within a set of rules. Plain and simple. They don't want to live within in a system where there's a set of rules. They want to just be out there doing their own thing. And we all know what that is. And it's not the same end goal that I think the, King County Regional Homeless Authority or anybody has for these folks that are littering our sidewalks and our streets and our parks. However, that is around 1%. So the 700 referrals, that's around 1% of the latest point-in-time count of homeless people in King County, which was over 40,000 in 2020. 40,000. You might live in a small city that might have 10,000. Well, we've got quadruple that of homelessness here in King County. That's a lot of folks. I mean, that's a lot of folks just living out there, doing their wilding thing. And that's according to the Seattle Department of Community and Human Services. Seattle dedicated $173 million towards homelessness in 2022. That's a 125% increase from 2018, when $77 million was budgeted towards the issue, according to the city. And we're going backwards. It is getting worse. I was driving, where was I driving? North on I-5. Nope, south on I-5, getting on I-90. I rarely get on I-90. I usually use 520 freeway system. And there's this turn where you can look down, and it's probably 50, 60 feet below is a really rough homeless encampment. I mean, it's in between this, twisty set of concrete pillars and stuff with, it's in the middle of two major freeways. It's intersection. And it is rough down there. I mean, you can only imagine what goes on down there. And this is the heart of Seattle that is going on. And we're just letting these folks run willy-nilly and, hope for the best. And with the amount of money that we are spending, the industrial homeless complex, I mean, it's a real thing. This year's allocated funds include $9.8 million towards the removal of RVs and encampments. Now, they have been working on that. In the most recent update to the Homeless Action Plan, the number of verified tents increased from 763 in May to 814 counted in June. As for the number of RVs in May, the number of verified RV encampments was 225. Now that's encampments where you've got a bunch of, broken down RVs hanging out. The city pointed out that May count only included sites with 5 or more vehicles. In June, the city counted any RV encampment sites with any number of vehicles with an updated total of 426 sites with, how many thousands of people does that entail right there, just in RVs running around our city because they can and because the city doesn't really do anything about it. There's a big uproar right now with these communities and kind of the little bit industrial type areas or the commercial areas. Think of like areas where you've got breweries and, restaurants and kind of a little bit more funky, a little bit more industrial. You've got eco blocks going up left and right. If you've never seen one of those, they're about 1,000 pounds. They're usually like orange, and they put them down to stop RVs parking on the street or on the sidewalk or in a park because you can only fit like a regular sized car in between them. You have to parallel park. So you can't do the RV. And people are up in arms in Seattle saying that what they're doing is illegal. The homeless people are staying wherever they want, and the crime coming out of the homeless communities, I mean, it's pretty shocking, right? City says that the current numbers are not an indication of an increase in homeless persons. Okay, all right. But rather reflect a more accurate assessment of the number of encampments throughout Seattle. Inflation is transitory. I'll love you in the morning. Any other set of misnomers could be thrown out here, right? I mean, just this is some nonsense. The changes for these data points are due to a combination of data collection changes, increased awareness of sites that were not previously identified, reductions due to site closures and referrals to shelter, and this is what Bruce Harrell's office is saying. That's the official. Housing statistics from the Seattle Homeless Action Plan show an additional, you've got some units that have been added, but it's nowhere near what we need. And we can't, this is one of those things where we cannot build our way out of it. And if we try to, you're just going to be building these enormous ghetto communities for homeless people. And it's just going to, we've tried that before. We've tried that with RV parking lots. And you know why people didn't go there and they ended up shutting them down? Because there was so much crime coming out of them and nobody wanted to stay there. Go there? Good Lord. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I was checking out a comment somebody made in New York City, and they were saying, hey, in the lower ends, folks in those communities, get them to move along to a shelter. And they make sure that they do. So, you know, there are different ways of handling things. Unfortunately, in Portland and Seattle and San Francisco and LA, they're just kind of like, it's fine. Just come on in. It'll all be good. We'll live as one big happy family. Yeah, I mean, you know, if you have a lot of, you know, gunshots and you got people stealing stuff and some violence and, you know, stolen goods being sold everywhere. If you're okay with that type of family structure, I would say, all right, well, let's go for this. Let's make this happen and keep going. The city also tallies the number of fires at encampments. 608 fires were counted in the first 4 months of 2022. 608. That increased to 855 fires through June 30th, which remains an average of 5 per day. I get it. These people want to heat up food, maybe actually create some heat for themselves during the winter. I get that. It's cold. But the whole thing, fire, you know, encapsulating RVs and, you know, anything around it. Down in Venice, it's taking up entire buildings. You know, you just can't have folks living in tents and RVs that are broken down and expect things not to happen like this on top of, you know, the gun violence that comes out of these areas. The number of shootings and shots fired near known encampment sites had a slight decrease to an average of 3 cases per week, down from 3.5 per week. I think we're just getting bored with reporting stuff. That's what we're doing. It's become so commonplace for shots to be fired that people are like, well, I mean, it is a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday. So why wouldn't we have a shooting? You want to call that one in? Yeah, it's okay. Nah, I mean, nobody got killed. So we're just going to keep going. Through June 30th, there were 71 shots fired near encampment sites. We know this is a source of gun violence. Right? I mean, we just know it. That's how stuff gets handled. And we had a deal last week. Was it last week or the week before? Somebody got whacked in the head with this was a crazy person. Somebody got whacked in the head, not in an encampment, but on the Blade in downtown Seattle, just straight up random violence, hit in the head with a metal rod. 3 times. The second blow was probably the death blow, but that person didn't make it. You've got some real Looney Tunes walking around, and Looney Tunes living in, homeless encampments. It's not a good These people should not be out living where they are. It's not humane. And it's not humane for the other citizens to have to put up with that. It's just flat out not. Government needs to step in and do something about a lot of this, and they're just not doing it. So I'm doing my part in talking about it because that's about all we can do at this point in time. There are entities out there helping, but until we get in a concerted effort of, okay, you know what? You either go to rehab or jail, or some kind of diversion program where we get you up and get you running, or, an institution because you are so far gone. And that's what I think a lot of these folks are, is they're so far gone. They need to be taken out of, circulation and put somewhere where they're no longer a harm to themselves or to others. Maybe it's medication they need. A lot of folks just need to, get their meds right. But they're not going to do that when they're living in a homeless encampment where anything goes. Mayor Hill's office has concluded from the number of shootings and shots fired that encampments continue to be disproportionately represented in public safety emergencies in the city. Safety and health emergencies at encampments continue to put additional strain on an already stretched thin public safety system. No kidding. That's why we're talking about it. This is stuff that our system cannot handle right now because we've got so much of this going on, and we defunded the police and we said, this will probably be okay, and didn't really think it through. And by we, I mean a lot of folks on the far left thought this would be just a genius idea. And here we are. Literally tomorrow, there is a vote coming up, Seattle City Council, whether they're going to do bonuses to bring in new police officers. Let's see. It's been a couple of years since, the race riots happened. And do we have more cops now, or even less than we did back then? We have even less, way less. Our numbers are way down. And just now, the Seattle City Council, which obviously has got some real nut jobs on it, they're not in a rush to hire more cops. They could care less if their citizens, if their constituents suffer from crime. That has been wildly clear. There's a couple in there that are probably like, I wish it was a little bit safer, but there are some new ones that are fighting, that are battling. Hey, we need to clean this up. It's go time. But then you've got entities, putting the eco blocks down, and other parts of the city are saying, this is terrible. This is a terrible affront. We just need to let people live in RVs wherever they want. You can't, block them out with eco blocks. Well, actually you can. You can't put people in institutions. No, you can. We used to. You can't put people in jail. Well, actually you can. We used to. And look where we are now. How's that working out? All of these things they weren't hard to predict, were they? I mean, we've been watching it happen. We've been watching this train wreck unravel, going, that's not good. That's not going in the right direction. And it continues to not go in the right direction. Now, everybody's aware. I mean, even we had a video last week that did pretty well. It was the activist for the homeless encampments. She invited people to come stay at her house, and she called out the address on a video. And her boyfriend's in the background, and her boyfriend's like, no, don't say that. We don't want them coming to our house. Yeah. And she immediately regretted it. That was, I think, the title of the video. But, just like, what are you thinking? What are you doing there? Because the number of homeless folks in homeless encampments is definitely going up. I mean, you can just walk around and see it. You might be moving them around a little bit, but you've got more people coming here because it's become an accepted thing. We're sweeping them out, but then they're just moving to another neighborhood. They're moving somewhere. But you got more people coming in because it's acceptable. And people know that, hey, you come to Seattle, when you prioritize homeless people having the ability to park wherever they can and disrupt whatever business they can. When you prioritize that over regular citizen safety, over regular citizens' businesses, it's going to have it obviously has a negative impact, and it's having a massive negative impact on crime, because wherever you've got these homeless encampments, crime in the neighboring suburbs, it just goes up. There's no way to get around it. You can sugarcoat it all you want, but that's just not going to work. It's not going to happen. Look at the graffiti in Seattle. I mean, it's pretty shocking. It's pretty shocking. It's because we live in an area here where just kind of let things go. It's okay. It'll be all right. Well, actually, no, it's not okay. And it's not going in that right direction. But we do have Mayor Bruce Harrell's new transparent system. So we get to actually look at these stats for what they're worth. We get to look at these stats now kind of in real time. And hey, I appreciate that. It's going to tell us what we kind of know, which is the more stuff you build, for the homeless community, the more they will come. Build it and they will come. That's not necessarily what we want. We don't want our neighborhoods flooded with homelessness. We want these people taken care of. We want them to get the mental health care they need. We want them to get the addiction treatment that they need. And that's another thing that our government here in Seattle is just woefully inadequate at. They are more like, it's okay. I mean, this fentanyl stuff, it's a little rough. So maybe test it every now and then. Here's a tester. If some of the stuff our city does is so enabling. I mean, doesn't anybody ever go to like a 12-step program anywhere? I mean, have you heard of that? You don't hand out drugs to a drug addict. They're going to kill themselves. But we know that as well because the number of, people ODing has gone through the roof, hasn't it? It's gone through the roof. When you compare the number of people that have OD'd on fentanyl versus back in the day from cocaine, the numbers are wildly shocking. Hardly anybody died from coke. They just didn't. Now, it takes so little of the fentanyl to end somebody's life because it's so strong and it's so powerful. But no, our government is saying, hey, shoot up cleanly, smoke that stuff cleanly. Here's a little clean pipe. It's got a filter on it for you. Those veins, if you can't get those veins going, here's a booty bump kit. Yeah, seriously, up the backside. Yeah, that's what we're doing. But at least we've got a system of transparency here now, so we can kind of see the numbers and see what's going on. So it'll be interesting to see if, are we going to get to a point where, hey, we're catching up. We're providing housing for these people. No, they don't want housing. That's the thing. And that's the hard reality I think government isn't really wanting to look at. These folks don't want housing. They just want to live their lifestyle. They just want to do their thing on their own terms. That's not going to work out long term. All right. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch up soon. Talk then. Bye for now.